Everyone, welcome to Monday Morning Marketing with your armchair CMOs. I'm Vaughn.
And I'm Julie. It's fall on. It's October, November, which means basically all the sports are going on. It's the biggest, busiest time of year in the sports world. But that's good for us because it means we have a lot to talk about. Do you want to get us started today?
All right, so our first topic today, just to get right into it, earlier this week it was announced that Klutch Sports and Entertainment, or whatever, Klutch Sports Group, headed by Rich Paul, obviously well known for representing LeBron James and a bunch of other high-profile NBA, NFL, and some other sports athletes. It was announced that they're doing a partnership with Monumental Sports and Entertainment. That's the Ted Leonsis group that owns the Wizards, Capitals, Mystics, and some other things up in the DC area. The goal of the partnership is for Clutch to help drive partnership revenue and partnership possibilities as Monumental prepares to do an $800 million renovation of Capital One Arena. So this stuck out to me. Obviously, like I'm a big LeBron fan. I'm a big NBA fan that we talked about on episode one, and I've really become a big fan of not Chris, Rich Paul, two different people. A big fan of Rich Paul and what he's done in the business. But it was the first time I've heard of a partnership like this. I know that agencies represent properties and are in business in terms of outside of representing specific athletes and personalities, but usually it's more brand activations within sports. So like maybe here's the term that we talked about last week, endemic versus non-endemic. So usually most of those partnerships are non-endemic brands that want to use people who are knowledgeable about sports to host events or activations or partnerships in the sports world. So I've never heard of something like this where it's an agency that's representing the partnership, sponsorship interests of a sports franchise in a league where they represent athletes in that same league. So I think it's cool. I think the biggest thing, it's very in line with what Rich Paul says about, he doesn't want to think of himself as an agent. He just wants to try to bring value whenever he's in the room and whatever opportunities come up for him. I think it's a big deal for Monumental because DC is a very cluttered place. There's a lot going on. And on top of that, not just in sports, there's a lot going on just with it being one of the arguably the most powerful city in the world. So, it's in line with what we know about Monumental to be innovative. And I think innovation is necessary if you're trying to stand out with so much going on in the world, especially in that city. So to be able to figure out a unique way to cut through the clutter and considering how innovative Rich Paul and his team is at Klutch, I think that makes sense for MSC. The one thing that I will say, 100% speculation, but I don't know if it opens the lanes for any, communication when free agency time comes. Like if there's people who are considering the Wizards that may or may not be on the Klutch roster. That is just an observation. That's not been insinuated or implied at all, just thinking out loud. But overall, it seems like a dope partnership. Happy for Klutch, happy for the Monumental team, and we know some of the folks there, so shout out to them.
The sports is a relationship business, so you might be onto something there. I'll also say I read something that said Clutch Sports is also doing a similar service for New York City Football Club.
Yes.
They're building a stadium. So this is not the only partnership that they just developed in this way, but it makes sense. MSE is doing it. Everything that Ted Leonsis has done with MSE has been, I feel like, ahead of the curve. So excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to know too before we move topics is just like Clutch started I think officially started in like 2012, and then since then, 2019 has become part of the UTA United Talent Agency family. But I think this move is continuing to solidify and make this claim that they're trying to catch up and really make an impact on the same way that some of the more bigger legacy agencies like William Morris and Wasserman and even Octagon, which we also are familiar with from being in the DC area. Like this is a statement that says, hey, we're not just in this agency business. We're trying to, like Rich said, we're trying to provide value in a bunch of different ways in sports and entertainment. And I think this is a big deal for that.
Yeah, it'll be very cool to see what progresses over the next couple of years.
All right, let's move to
Um,
topic two. Let's talk about the Clippers. Who wants to talk about the Clippers?
The Clippers. I know that's been their whole thing for the last few years, but the new owner, Steve Balmer, is making sure that people are talking about the Clippers. He is sick of being the Lakers in the Lakers shadow out in LA. So we want to talk specifically about the Clippers' new arena, the Intuit Dome. I think it was like a $2 billion arena, something like that, which is not completely out of line with other new stadiums, but they are stopping at nothing to make it the most innovative, like high tech arena out there. Um, and I think the question we want to talk about is this arena gonna really help put the Clippers on the map and make us all want to talk about the Clippers as much as Steve Ballmer is hoping? What do you think, Vaughn?
I think so far it's doing a good job with that. I mean, we got to consider how tumultuous of a like decade the Clippers had, like considering just decades of losing, but then you had the whole fiasco with Donald Sterling. So I think it's, from what I've seen about just all of the PR that like we even just saw that the video that Front Office Sports put out that really kind of outlined all the stuff that was in the dome. Just seeing people be excited so far in the first couple of weeks, it's a big deal. I mean, just to not have to worry about sharing the space with the Lakers, I think is huge for them from a team standpoint, from a basketball operation standpoint. But then just continuing to grow the fan base. And I think that that's what's important too, is like the branding is one thing, but then you actually want to make sure you have a venue where people want to go there and you can create a home court advantage for your team. I think all things that they've done, all the money they've invested in that has been good so far.
Yeah, I do think that's an interesting point. I feel like brand comes a little later. I think the first steps to brand are put a good product on the court, you put a good product in the arena so your fans are having a good time, and hopefully that home court advantage helps your team have more success. And then over time, you kind of change the brand of your franchise. So that won't necessarily come year one with a new arena, but can definitely help. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think
okay.
the brand part of it starts with not necessarily like the branding of the team. I think it's more just about the awareness of the
The
most
investment.
important thing that's happening right now, which is the investment, which is the change, right? I think they're not just trying to like, they're not necessarily doing a lot of brand awareness for the team. And this, again, we're not in that market, but from my perspective, it's like, yeah, I like to think that you want to go in the order of, brand awareness, and then you get people to come, and then you get people once they've become a fan to spend money. But at the same time, people have to be aware. So if they're not aware of like coming to see the Clippers because the Clippers are going to be good, but the message is let's make people aware that the dome is crazy and you want to at least experience it one time in your life, and then maybe you get hooked, and then you become a fan for forever, or your kids become a fan. I think that that's a good spot that they're at right now in terms of trying to figure out how to take the next step to being like a legit, well-respected NBA franchise.
Well, and we've talked about this before too. We might have even talked about this last week, how going to an NBA game, especially the NBA as compared to other sports, but you see it in other sports for sure, it's like as much a social event as it is just going to a game. Like
Right.
you're not necessarily going to watch the game, you're going because it's a cool, like social thing to do.
Yep.
Having a cool arena will definitely add to that draw. I want to talk about the wall, which I know you're also excited about. The wall is a big section. It's basically like the big fan supporter section that they added to the Intuit Dome. Um, and they're essentially picking like verified diehard Clippers fans to stand right behind the basket every game and make the arena loud and energetic. I love this idea personally. Having a background in college sports, we know, and also just being a huge fan myself of college sports, I know the impact that like the student section can have on the energy of an entire arena, even if it's 300 or 600 or 1,000 students out of a 70,000 person stadium or whatever. And it seems to be like they're kind of trying to imitate that energy, but I love it. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I definitely think that throughout the last couple of decades, that has been the one thing that the college sports scene will always have over the pro sports scene. and that experience because of the atmosphere of you got diehard people who like no matter what, they're thick and thin going to be supporting that school. And then specifically as you talk about how important student sections are, when you got 2,000 plus or whatever the number is, depending on whether it's basketball or football. Let's say you got 2,000 people in your basketball arena who are ages 18 to 22 who are excited to see you play in the biggest game of the year, or your team is good enough that they're coming every game, right? Like that's an advantage that, we know from working in college sports is tough to bottle, right? It's tough to like get that and make it sustainable when there's ups and downs. But
Think it.
the difference here is, and the reason why I think this is a really cool idea for them is because they're investing in it and doing it in a way where they're taking that same model, but then they're able to use the resources and the financial part specifically to kind of invest into making sure you got it. So, that's something that we always struggle to try to, how do we incentivize the students to keep coming? So I think with Steve Ballmer having an unlimited budget to say, let's just do whatever, however we can throw money at getting these people to stay coming to make sure the wall is there every game. I think that's a big deal. And to have KD comment on it after the first game was crazy. I think it has
People
potential to
commented
be
too.
it has potential to be really cool as long as it works. Because
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
as long as
Uh,
people keep coming,
I think they have a few things going for them along those lines. I want to note the season pass for that section is about $1,000 a year, which is $24 a game. So affordability is one factor. It's not like these people are paying $100 plus a game. The other factor is some of the stuff we were talking about this week is things like in-arena Wi-Fi and some of those other high-tech things that they added. Like they have all these AI components and t-shirt guns. I think that stuff like that in-arena experience matters too.
yeah, that definitely is taking it. And again, just shows that they have multiple approaches, like multiple angles that they're approaching, trying to provide the best experience in the league. And just watching that video from Front Office Sports where they talked about all the things that they put in the arena, it literally felt like everything I've ever heard any fan or read in a fan survey someone complain about, they fixed it. Whether it was the Wi-Fi or having a place to charge your phone or the fact that there's t-shirt guns that can shoot to the top of the arena so those people don't get left out, like all that stuff. So they've definitely done their research. They definitely have, it seems like a good plan, but also more importantly, Steve Ballmer's got a lot of money and he is sparing no expense.
Do we know how it was funded? Did he pay for the whole thing?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. But we talked about it earlier too, like just on top of him having a bunch of money and being committed to it, there are some very important strategic partnerships there that are adding finances to that as well in terms of like, obviously Intuit's got a lot of money invested in it, but you were talking earlier about the AT&T partnership with the fibers to support all of the electronics and the Wi-Fi in there. So like I'm sure he put up a big chunk of it, but it seems like it's got a nice plan in terms of the finances being.
Smart sponsorships.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm live fact checking. It was entirely privately funded.
Hmm.
Don't know what of that came from Steve Ballmer's pocket or from partnerships. But like you said, naming rights are obviously a huge part of it. That AT&T integration, which I think was really smart, they didn't just slap a name on it. They
Yep.
made sure like it's an endemic brand, but not to basketball, but to like the things that they did in the arena, including things like in-arena Wi-Fi.
Right.
Um, and I want to loop back to Klutch Sports. And you mentioned MSC and the $800 million renovation, which is a public and private, like jointly funded venture. But I bet you some of that private funding is going to come from these like smart sponsorships that hopefully Klutch develops. So
Yeah.
it's all tying in. I also wanted to mention about this just super quickly. I think LA is also a very good market for a really high tech arena like this and all those like the AI experiences and a lot of those complaints might not exist in smaller and or older markets. Like I know Pittsburgh, for example, always has a hard time modernizing.
Mm.
because it's a little bit older market. The audience is maybe a little bit less tech savvy. I don't know if that's true in 2024. It definitely was back when I was in Pittsburgh. Um, but it seems like an LA crowd is the type of crowd to appreciate like an AI or like a facial recognition
It's
technology that helps you pay for your beer at the game versus like having to swipe an actual credit card. So
yep,
not only like, not only are they listening to their customers, but they know what will excite their customers and also like what their customers will tolerate.
yep. And I think that that's also a good testament to Steve Ballmer's background too, of being a tech guy. Like he's probably got that pressure put on them to say like this has got to be as high tech as possible for us to be able to say that we are the best in the business.
True. All right. Are we ready to move on to our third topic of the day?
Topic three, final topic of the day. So let's just preface this by saying Jules and I are not NHL people. Um,
No.
but the conversation we're going to have is very much in line with the reason why we started this podcast because we're going to talk about marketing and branding. It just so happens to be for an NHL team. So we discovered, both Jules and I discovered earlier this week that there's a new NHL franchise that started this year in Utah.
We
Um,
uncovered it. This is like breaking news.
so literally, I was watching SportsCenter one morning on Peloton, and I saw the score on the bottom, and it said Utah versus maybe it was Vegas or something. And I was like, when did Utah get an NHL team? And so I had to Google it. And so the background is for those of you who might not be familiar, who are like me and Jules and are not big NHL fans. Um, Arizona Coyotes franchise was relocated, and so it ended up becoming a franchise in Utah and Salt Lake City. So we're gonna talk about just kind of our perspective on like I think in their defense, right? Like it wasn't just I immediately thought about the Kraken because when the Seattle Kraken came a few years ago, it was a big deal. I remember seeing on all the news, the sports outlets about, the rollout of their colors and the logos, and they had this video with the Kraken in the water and like, what does the Kraken even mean, and all this other kind of stuff. And then they did a really good job of tapping in with the Seattle sports legends like Sean Kemp and Gary Payton were involved, and Marshawn Lynch was involved, and he ended up becoming a part owner a couple years after they got, or maybe the same year they got started. Um, but I just immediately compared it to that and just was like, when you got a brand new franchise and there's no awareness for it, that's not really a good start. Like even if I'm not an NHL fan, but I'm a sports fan, I should at least see something somewhere that makes me know that there's a team there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not NHL fans, but you saw it on SportsCenter, you said, and like we all follow all of the sports Instagram accounts and X accounts.
Right.
So we should know, right? Like it should be making news there. It should be part of our awareness. I will say you call it a relocation. They're insisting it's uh, an expansion. They're calling themselves an expansion team, although the team and the management look a lot like the Arizona Coyotes. So it is like truly a little bit more of a relocation, which honestly, I don't know if that gives them an excuse for why, there wasn't like a big rollout, marketing rollout, or if that's a reason why there even needed to be a stronger one, like a stronger rebrand of the team. So people aren't just calling them like the new Coyotes.
Right. I mean, I almost feel like because this is kind of similar, just thinking about it, and this literally just hit me just now. It's similar to what happened in, I guess that's technically OKC Hornets situation. Remember, like, because of Katrina and they were in, like, the Hornets left Charlotte and went to New Orleans.
Are you talking about 2005, my friend?
Yes, you don't remember that?
I was 9.
Jesus Christ, Jules. Okay. Um, my My point is when they moved initially, they kept the name. No, maybe I'm getting this wrong. I just feel
Who
like
moved? Who moved where?
I feel like I don't, it's getting cloudy now, but I know that,
I'm gonna do some more live fact
okay.
checking.
But my point is maybe it would have made sense to just move the Coyotes to Utah for a year just to establish that and then do a whole full-fledged, okay, let's make it a new team. Right?
Yeah, you know why I think that might have been complicated is I read that the owner in Arizona retained the naming rights in case he wanted to bring back a team, like
Sheesh.
bring back the actual Coyotes, as
Okay.
opposed to just selling off the team. He's now like gotten rid of those rights, but I bet you that complicated that. Maybe that was part of the plan.
Yep. Well, that makes sense. But I
Just trying
think,
to fact check your little
yeah.
tangent there. New Orleans. But I can't even find anything. That was
It's
so long
something
ago.
about the Horn. I mean, I know the Hornets left Charlotte to go to New Orleans, but then they got displaced to OKC when Katrina came. But then they I think they ended up leaving and turning into the Thunder. No, because the Thunder is Seattle. I'm tripping. Seattle came to OKC after that and became the Thunder. And
Hurricane Katrina, this is in Wikipedia, devastated the city of New Orleans in 2005 and caused extensive damage to the arena. As a result, the Hornets were unable to play any home games and temporarily relocated to OKC to become the New Orleans slash OKC Hornets.
Mhm.
The Hornets returned to New Orleans for the 07-08 season.
Mhm.
And then, oh,
Changed to
here,
the Pelicans.
following the success of the Hornets' tenure in the city, the Seattle Supersonics relocated to OKC for
Yes.
08-09, where they now compete as the Thunder.
So I
As the
think
Hornets,
that's
as for
what
the
happened.
Hornets
The Hornets stayed in New Orleans, but they changed into the Pelicans, and then
in 2013.
yes, that whole situation was very complicated.
That
Kudos
is
to
a very,
even having some parts of that right. But back to Utah and their NHL team. The marketing and branding issues that I have with it personally, my expert opinion, is one, the name is just very blah. Like the Utah Hockey Club, like apparently, let's also give context that the owner of this club, the Utah Hockey Club, also owns the Jazz. They play in the Jazz Arena. But he like founded Qualtrics, which for those of you who don't know is a big uh stats platform. Is that the best description of it? It's like they do polls and they analyze data.
oh, yes, it's like a survey
Yeah.
software. Yeah.
So they used it to do a poll to figure out the name. So the other names, you guys tell us if you think these other names would be better. The Blizzard, the Fury, the Venom, the Yetis, the Outlaws, the Utah Ice, and the Utah Mammoth. I mean,
I don't know how Blizzard didn't get chosen. I feel like that's a fit.
I feel like Blizzard makes a lot of sense too. I mean, Blizzard makes sense to me. I feel like Yetis is not bad either because here's the other part of my rant that I'm going on is like they're playing in the Utah Jazz, the same arena. It's the same ownership. They're using the same mascot, but they didn't use the same colors. Like to me, to have a like kind of basic name and not even use the same colors as the Jazz, like I always loved and appreciated and respected like whoever's idea it was at Monumental to make sure all those teams had the same colors. Because even when I was a kid, when they were blue, because they used to be like when the Wizards were blue, the Mystics were blue, the Capitals were blue. But then when one of them changed or when they decided to make that change, they all changed. So that was a big deal. That makes sense because like you can wear your Wizards hat with your Mystics jersey and go to a Mystics game, or you can wear your Ovechkin jersey to the Capitals game, but you have your Mystics hat. Like it just makes a lot of sense from an internal standpoint too, from team operations. Like it means that you don't have to worry about different colors within the arena and stuff like that. Like that just makes a lot of
Well,
sense to me.
even the city of Pittsburgh, they all aligned.
Yes.
under not the same ownership. And one thing I've always loved, I know I'm a little biased, but like Pitt chose the yellow, the gold that they chose because it was a Pittsburgh color. And then to like set, differentiate themselves from the pro teams, they chose what's now royal blue instead of the black. But that gives, I think, the city of Pittsburgh such a strong sports identity, which is part of why like Pittsburgh is known as such a strong sports city. I do think it helps with like not just branding the team, but branding the city.
Yep. Fun fact, Jules. I don't know if you knew this, but in 2017, when I was working at VCU, we played the A10 tournament at PPG.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so the marketing guy at VCU, which is me, and the creative
Mhm.
director came up with this campaign called Black and Gold Unite. And we had like posters, like billboards in the area promoting that. We made our own version of the terrible towel that we passed out to our fans to try to
Hmm.
for Pittsburgh. We ended up the longer story is before because that was just a one-off year. Like it was a transition. The A10 tournament had been in Brooklyn like since they opened Barclays, and the VCU fans had like stormed Brooklyn and like made it their thing. It was a big deal. Like Spike Lee came to games. So when this we made this transition to go to Pittsburgh, we were like, we got to figure out some way to make this cool and keep people excited, even though it's not Brooklyn. So that was kind of like the task that I was given, and we came up with Black and Gold Unite, which was great. Like,
Pretty
we got to
cool.
figure out a way to at least, if we can't just keep our people excited, maybe we get some Pittsburgh people to come and wear their Steelers jerseys to come cheer for us.
You were up against Duquesne, I think is in the A10 now.
Yes. So we actually had like a bus poster on Duquesne's campus.
Ah.
Um,
Well,
I-
that arena is right next to Duquesne's campus too. You
yes.
were that is true that you were in a hard situation there, but I like what you came up with.
Yeah. It's one of my
You're
favorite,
not
one of my VMOS marketing highlights there.
put it in your highlight reel. What else do you have on Utah Hockey Club?
I mean, I'm just not excited.
I mean, you don't like hockey, but
No, I mean,
uh,
I actually have been to a Stanley Cup game. I went to a Stanley Cup game for the Capitals. And
and
I
I
had a
was a
good
hockey
time.
fan when the Pens won 2 years in a row when I was in Pittsburgh, so I'm a bandwagoner.
I mean,
Uh,
ultimately, we wish them the best. Hopefully, like I think that the
I think
circumstances aren't ideal. Like for a regular, typical, we're expanding, let's roll out a new team. But also at the same time, I feel like there were some opportunities that they missed.
I do think the one opportunity that they left for themselves is they don't have a name. So in year two, if they announce a name, they have the opportunity to announce that along with like a whole rollout of branding that goes along with the name.
Yep.
Um, which maybe that was intentional. Maybe they knew they didn't have the time or the resources to develop like a whole rollout this year, and they're like, we'll name ourselves and do it next year. This is just a transition year.
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, ultimately, I do think that again, I think the synergy with the Jazz, because I mean, I guess maybe there's a different fan base they're trying to target, so they want to keep it separate. But to me, that doesn't just from knowing what I know about how it functions in these other places, like we just talked about in DC and in Pittsburgh, like your sports fans are your sports fans. Like they may have a
Yeah.
favorite that they go to more than they go to others, but if the team and the other sport is good, I'm gonna go, or I'm gonna go watch, or I'm gonna represent. So
Yeah. I mean, I've been to a Caps game. I don't like hockey, but I'll
yeah,
go. Yeah. Um, yeah,
interesting to
Ryan
see.
and I
I think the bottom line is it'll be interesting to see what comes next.
I also think Ryan and Ashley Smith should call us if they need help.
Have you been to Utah?
What?
Have you been to Utah?
No, have you been to
I've been
Utah?
to Utah actually. BC
Okay.
played NCAA tournament game that same year I was just talking about. Uh,
2017.
yeah, Utah. It was a good time. Cool sneaker store on campus at University of Utah I went to. But yeah, I'll go to Utah. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in. for 6 months.
Jules, what a time. Well, we wrapped up episode 2.
Here we are.
Here we are. Hopefully you guys learned stuff. I mean, I learned a lot today. Did you learn stuff today, Jules?
I learned a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And in prepping, I learned a lot too.
So your armchair CMOs, episode 2, a success. Utah Hockey Club, hit us up. Shout out to Steve Balmer and the Clippers and
Rich Paul.
our Georgetown guy, Mr. Leonsis.
And
The good.
Zach. I think actually Zach, his son, is the one who like championed this.
Yes. Shout out to Zach. Zach, how old is Zach? Zach's got to be like, you think he's older than, he's probably your age, or maybe you think he's old.
No. You're gonna make me do more live fact
No, no, no,
checking?
no. We don't need to know how old Zach is. Show's
I'm
over.
gonna find out now. You
We
can't
don't need
ask me
to.
questions and ask me not to find the answer. That's not how I operate. Uh, he is early 30s.
So he's in between us, probably. Got it. All right.
Oh wait, no, I lied. Wait, no, that's still right. Mid 30s.
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
Jules. Good
Great
to see
chat. Now that we know how old Zach Williams is.
you.
All right.
Oh
Thanks,
man.
thanks, man, for a great conversation in week 2.
Great talk. Armchair Simo signing off. Catch you next week. Talk to you soon.
Bye, y'all.